Harrybrew69. I mean, the guy who does some crazy outlandish things going on your videos, sir.
It's been known.
There was one upside down mouth goatee thing that I remember.
Yeah, now what was his name? I can't. I think he was from Burnt Chin Breweries. The representative got in touch with me from there at some point.
That was pretty funny. That was pretty funny. So what can you tell us about Harrybrew69? I mean, who's the guy behind the camera?
Well, obviously, Harrybrew69 is my handle on YouTube, as they say. My real name is Chris, or Christopher, but everybody normally calls me Chris. I live in a small town in Nottinghamshire, Robin Hood country, and I live here with my girlfriend. We're not married, but we've been together for a number of years now, and I've got 2 children, Dominic and Abigail. And I've pretty much lived in Retford most of my adult life, but in fact I was born in Birmingham in the Midlands in the UK. We moved up here when I was a lot younger.
Alright.
Yeah, so I'm not, although my family is Nottinghamshire born and bred, my father was a fireman and he was stationed there, you see, so that's where I ended up coming into the world.
Oh, yeah. Nottingham's a pretty interesting place. Home of the oldest pub in all of England, is that right?
That's what they say, yeah. It's called the Ye Olde Trip to Jerusalem. In fact, I do a few of my beer reviews on YouTube out of one of their pint glasses that I acquired some time ago.
So, can you share with us, like, how you support this passion, hobby, habit of ours?
Yeah, you want to know what I do for a living and how I ended up here, I guess. Well, I suppose I better start from the beginning. My working life began as an apprentice for a wildlife trust, Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust, strangely enough. And I always used to have an affiliation with everything outdoors, pretty much. A lot of my hobbies back when I was younger revolved around the outdoor scene. I was a keen air gunner and hunter, so it just seemed natural for me to try and fall into something that was sort of wildlife based. I was interested in conservation and the environment. So I began a youth training scheme with those guys when I left school. But not everything always pans out as it should. And I'm terrible for allergies. Okay. And, hay fever was one in particular that sort of put an end to that career, especially when it came to sort of to bringing in the hay at the end of the summer, or in the summer.
Yeah, the hidden killer.
Yeah, I mean, I think I even shocked the doctor when I went to him, because it looked like my body was covered in a rash just from picking these bales up. Anyway, so we sort of knocked that on the head. And it didn't pay too well either, to be fair. I mean, it was more of a career choice for something you'd have to be passionate about. You definitely wasn't going to be raking in the coin, as they say.
But so, you seem like a pretty handy, sort of outdoorsy kind of guy. So it does make sense. Right.
Yeah, I mean, still now, I've not grown out of my hay fever, and I do suffer from it in the summertime. And I have some other allergies as well that do tend to get in the way, but you battle through. And yeah, I do spend as much time as I can outdoors, in nature, walking, hiking. A couple of my my hobbies that I like to take the dog out when I can. I like to go sort of foraging for wild foods, all that kind of stuff. And I suppose that's one of the interests, one of the reasons why I got interested in brewing my own beer, you see, to sort of, I know we're going to come round to that, but you can see how it's all related. Now, I'm always interested in how things start off, if you know what I mean. So, from moving on from the Wildlife Trust, obviously needed a job that was going to pay the rent, so I went into manufacturing in the UK's prominent double glazing industry. Okay, which
I don't know what double glazing is. I've never heard of that before.
no,
What is that?
well, I'm sure you've got it in your house, Tony. I'd have thought so, living in a colder clime than we are. It's basically thermally insulated windows for your home. Now, I'm not going to try and sell you any, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, I mean, it's basically...
I'll have to go to idlevalleybrewing.com for that, I think.
We don't sell double glazing now. I'm trying to escape that as quick as possible. But yeah, it's basically 2 panes of glass with an inert gas in between, and it just keeps the heat, you know, inside or outside, however you want to play it. But in the UK, double glazing is synonymous with sort of cowboy salesmen and, you know, dodgy installers, and it's got, over the years, quite a bad reputation as an industry to be in. And I found myself in it purely by accident. I was just looking for a job at the time. But I remained there for 10 years in the double glazing industry. I learnt my trade from the ground up. We started from manufacturing. And when I left, I was the manager of the glass branch of the company I was working for. And I didn't leave to go and work for another firm. I left to start my own business as an independent installer, and that was in 2005. And from then, that's what I've been doing. That basically puts the bread and butter on the table for me. And of course, then came along Idle Valley Brewing, and that wasn't just born out of an interest or a want to get homebrew goods cheap for myself, but also for other people. But also, I had a little bit of interest in selling things on the internet, and you know, I was quite an involved eBayer for a start. So you just see opportunities, and you have to sometimes push them, especially when things are getting a little bit tight in the pocket department. So yeah, I mean, I still fit windows, doors, all that kind of jazz. But really, I'm trying to push my independent trading on the internet as well. But that pays the bills at the minute.
Nice.
And of course, home brewing can be an expensive sort of passion, if you like. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to try and not just source the freshest and best ingredients, but get them as cheap as possible, cheaper than the homebrew stores. And I noticed there were quite a few guys on the internet who were doing sort of community purchases, if you like. You know, group of homebrewers getting together and putting their money into a pot to give them a little bit more buying power. And homebrewers are particularly thin on the ground where I live. You wouldn't believe it, because we're such, you know, we've got quite a large interest in homebrew in the UK, but we are quite widely dispersed. So the only way I could really do that was to try and offer things over the internet with the guys. So yeah, that's basically my profession in a nutshell. Hardly a nutshell. But yeah, so for all intents and purposes, Tony, I'm a double glazing fitter.
Double glazing, internet, road blazing, match tun wielding, yeah, entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, all of these things, you see, all the, I suppose, all of my handiwork that goes into making my own brewing equipment, and you know, putting together my own recipes, all this kind of stuff, definitely stems from when I was much younger. You know, I touched earlier on the hunting that I wanted to, that I used to do as a child or as a teenager. And of course, for that, I made all my own equipment as well. I used to knit my own nets. I'm sure you've seen like the fishermen at the docks knitting their own nets. I learned all that from scratch. And that's just sort of carried over. As a kid, I used to take all my toys to bits. Never had any toys for 2 minutes, especially if there was electrical. I'd have them in bits to figure out how they worked. So that's sort of just carried across. And
I'm trying to think about what would I do to my son if he was like that.
Oh, well, we didn't have many toys. That's mainly because I took them to pieces. But,
well, okay, that's kind of an interesting segue because you're leading into a point that I wanted to ask you about. So, how did you get into homebrewing? So,
well, yeah, honestly, it was the legal age of purchasing alcohol. That's what pushed me toward making my own beer. So, in the early stages, it definitely wasn't born out of a passion for real ale or craft beers, or even an interest. It was solely out of getting a buzz.
So this was at an age before you were able to legally purchase in the store?
Yeah, I was 15 when I first made my first batch of, I think it was a John Bull's English Bitter out of a tin.
Okay.
And that would have been...
And your parents knew about this?
No. No, it was cleverly conceived in a cupboard in my bedroom.
Okay, so a lot of these experiences that I hear about, when you're young, especially, I've never heard it quite this young before, but I have heard some stories from some of the people I know around here that it started when they were like in college and things like that, and then they were like, yeah, we were trying to, just make beer so that we could catch a buzz and have a good time. Mm-hmm. But every single one of them seems to have a bad experience with that first time or first couple times. How was your experience?
Well, the first time we made it seemed to run relatively trouble-free. And I say we because I was in collaboration with a few of my friends who, a few school buddies, if you like. So yeah, we managed to get a few batches under our belt. Obviously wasn't overwhelmed with the taste, but it was beer nonetheless, and we drank it. It was hassle-free beer. It was cloudy, yeasty, tasted probably like crap, but we drank it. And that sort of spurred us on to make something a little bit more, with a little bit more oomph, if you like, a little bit more strength. And I suppose that's where my first bad experience came from with making my own beer. We tried to make they call them prohibition kits in the UK. Now, I'm not sure if any guys elsewhere are familiar with them, or even if they sell them outside of Britain. You can make like a cherry brandy, vodka, gin, whiskey, bourbon, and the kits come with a whole array of additives and charcoal, all the kind of stuff you need to get your stuff down and clear. And all you had to do was put the sugar in, basically, in the water. So we made a cherry brandy, and it pretty much fermented out. We ended up with something around between 15 and 17% as far as I can recall. And yeah, I was drinking it by the pint. So that was
There's a storm waiting to happen.
That was my first real bad experience, not just of homebrewing, but also that day I figured out my limits. So yeah, that was probably the worst experience I'd had. I know you was thinking, I assume, more along terms of bad batches or...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
well, I've had a few, but I mean, they were just sort of run of the mill in the early years. I mean, there was predominantly kit brewing. Well, it was kit brewing. That was all I did really until we came almost full circle back round to losing interest for a few years. Maybe just before the kids were born, I guess. And yeah, then when I got into all grain, that's when I suppose it opened my eyes up to what could happen. So I mean, we're talking, we may have an infection in a kit in the initial stages. We may have contaminated a batch or even spilled a whole batch over the floor. But you're not too bothered, I don't suppose, when it's a kit and kilo job. But when I've put all this effort and passion into making one of my own all-grain recipes, and of course the brew day goes from being 45 minutes to 6 hours and 45 minutes, that's when it really sort of gets you upset if a batch turns sour or goes the wrong way.
Absolutely. So what was one of your key motivators or driving forces for going from kit and kilo to all grain? So not really much Karen to Karen.
Well, it was definitely YouTube. Definitely, without a doubt. Like I say, when I started, we were making it simply for the sake of making cheap, you know, easy beer. And then when we went, well, I got interested again into it after a few years out, and obviously with anything I do, I sort of wanted to look a little bit deeper into it. I suppose it would be easier to explain this if I said after Dominic was born, which is my eldest boy, he's 5 now, well, during when Gemma was carrying him, I did a couple of courses at university. I studied science at university because I never went to university when I left school. And this the postgraduate courses that I was on were quite heavy in maths, science, you know, all everything that comes with a science degree. And that sort of spurred me into trying again. Of course I was skint at the time because I was back at university. So that sort of spurred me into getting another kit off the shelf, and I thought, well, why don't I apply this knowledge that I'm picking up now into actually making that leap into all grain. So yeah, I looked at YouTube, and I came across the standard videos. I think there was a few guys in there in one or two of the southern states in America doing all grain beers, literally in his kitchen and his back garden with no specialist equipment at all. And I'd been watching our friend in Canada, Mr. Craig Faraway, for a while, and also I thought to myself, well, he's doing the kit and kilos as I was at that time, and I really wanted to move forwards with it and, you know, go into all grain. So I suppose it was a combination of going back to school and having my interests sort of relit in home brewing, and I'd say that's probably one of the biggest sort of changes in my brewing career that came about. As soon as I went into all grain brewing, my brewing footprint exploded, completely exploded, and
I can relate to that.
Yeah, within a space of a few years. I mean, mainly, Tony, because of the results. They were so different to what I'd been getting with brewing kit and kilo beers. Now, on the flip side of that, I've had sent to me a few beers that have been made by home brewers who brew just, well, not exactly kit and kilo beers, but, you know, 2-can kits, that kind of stuff. And one or two of these beers have been better than what I've actually ever made. So I can't knock extract brewing or kit brewing on the head. But,
well, let's not be shy or anything. Let's give credit where credit is due. I think, is it Beer Lover 1983, maybe one of those?
Well, you've got a good memory. Yeah, that's the guy who first sent me an outstanding festival Golden Stag beer, I think it was. And I just thought to myself, well, this guy's done this out of a 2-can kit. I've spent like 2 years putting this all grain setup together, and he's just, boom, blown me out of the water, hands down. But, I mean, I was still sort of getting feet wet, if you know what I mean. There's so many improvements that I've made to my brewing setup, and each step has been something that I've noticed. For instance, the first boil that I ever did, I think the YouTube video is still out there on my channel. I was using an old, what they call a Burco boiler. Now this is something that, it's a 10-gallon boiler, and it's something that like my grandma may have boiled socks and underpants in, you know, maybe 40 years.
Are those the ones that come in blue or green and they have like little specks of white here and there?
No, I don't think so. They're mainly silver, like cast iron or aluminium clad. A big old rusty tap on the front, and something like 2,500 watts of heating element bolted underneath. And really, yeah, they're very, very rough and ready. And obviously I didn't have any other way of boiling the quantities that I wanted to make, so I went out and bought one of these, really cleaned it down, sort of spruced it up a little bit, resprayed it. But yeah, that was my first boil kettle, and the beer that I made in that, it was a hell of a lot better than the kits that I'd been making at the time, but it wasn't commercial quality. So I suppose the next step was to upgrade the brew kettle. As soon as I went over to the keggle that's behind me, that was a massive improvement. I could get a full rolling boil on the go, you know, knock all the DMS out of the wort, all that kind of stuff that comes with, you know, utilising all your hops. Massive improvement. And then over the years, I've gradually upgraded things, and I think the beer now is approaching a marketable quality. If only.
Oh, you're modest.
But I think you never stop improving your gear. I mean, for instance, one of the most recent upgrades that I've done is to use a keg as a mash tun.
Right.
And the week prior to that, or the month prior to that, I'd eliminated all PVC hoses from my brew setup and gone across to the silicone hoses. I immediately noticed a difference by eradicating plastic from my setup.
Really?
Yeah, immediately.
What kind of differences specifically?
Well, the first thing that you get is the smell on the brew day. If you're running hot water through PVC or vinyl hoses, it does give off an odour, and I'm almost 100% sure that that's going into your beer and giving you a little bit of astringency, perhaps. There's always used to be something on the back that I could never put my finger on, and literally changing that out, getting rid of the plastic in the mash tun, getting rid of the vinyl PVC hoses, gone. Really made a difference.
Now you're talking about all of the upgrades that you've done to your system. Now, as a subscriber, consumer of your media channel, and watching it sort of evolve over the course of the last couple of years, I mean, that's been pretty phenomenal. And you are a very handy guy. So you've got sort of a lot of nice ingenuity. You're very an ingenuitive sort of individual that can take basically nothing and turn it into something. Like, you've built, you know, mash tuns for people. You've built your own mash paddles that you are selling up on idlevalleybrewing.com, and also well, all of your equipment.
Yeah,
you're doing the electricity within for your kettles and the PIDs and stuff, and that's not all simple. I mean, that's kind of confusing stuff.
Yeah, I suppose a lot of that, especially the stuff related to electrics, I've not just gone at it gung-ho. Okay, I've been electrocuted twice. Okay. 240 volts, and you know about it. But luckily, not recently. Not with my brewing setup. You'll be pleased to hear.
So your occasional tick, that's just normal.
Yeah, fine now. But as I was a lot younger, yeah, I got electrocuted twice as a child, not through my hobby. And I really didn't want to experience that again. So when it comes to electrics, I really am careful that I know what I'm doing, and I test things rigorously before I actually plug them into the mains or wire them up. And of course I always take precautions with RCDs where necessary as well, which is definitely important when you're mixing water with electrics, and of course most of your equipment's going to be metal as well.
Absolutely.
But I suppose the ingenuity that you talk about, where I just that was gung-ho initially. Like I say, as I was younger, I wanted to know how things worked. I'm interested in whether I could do it, whether I could make it myself. And of course, when I went into the double glazing industry, for instance, I noticed that it was just me who was sort of being moved from machine to machine, from using one piece of equipment to the next, to learning this, to calculating that. And like I say, I rose up into the role of a manager in the company I was in, and this was in a very short space of time. We're talking only 2 or 3 years, and that's because I just liked applying myself to whatever it is I was doing.
You're a very curious man.
That's it. I'm just curious on how things work, and of course with that comes, you know, you're learning all the time. That's another thing that I'm a real advocate for: education. If you can learn something new, you're going to be able to use it at some point in your life. You know, I think it's a real important life skill to have, the ability to take a step back, look at something and learn from it. So I suppose that's where it comes from. Anything I do, if I see somebody else do it, I think, well, there's a guy who's done something pretty neat. He's put this together. I think I'll have a go at that. And before you know it, you end up making 6,000 watt mash tuns and kettles and HLTs and all that kind of stuff.
It's fun. It's fun to learn and to figure things out and put things together.
Yeah, that's half of it. I mean, if we had to do a breakdown on it, I'd say, yeah, 5% brewing, 5% having fun, 90% cleaning. That's home brewing in a nutshell.
So, talking about cleaning, have you made your SJ Pour Challenge beer yet?
No. Not.
Do you know what you're going to do?
I've got a couple of ideas under my hat, but what I'm not going to do is a tried and tested recipe, simply for the reason that I'm curious. And I know that every beer in stages is an improvement on the last. So if we're set to brew our best beer this year, and we are, then I couldn't enter a beer that I made last year, because I know now I've learnt so much more. I'd be able to apply so much more knowledge to that batch of beer, and there's a small chance that it'll turn out an absolute failure, but chances are it'll be an improvement on the previous one. So no, I've not settled on a style even.
When it comes down to the UK competition leg of the SJ Pour competition challenge, what can you tell me about that? I mean, how has that grown or changed from previous years?
Well, last year, SJ, I don't think, had in mind to do a global competition initially. He was just looking for somebody to maybe get involved in a few other countries than the States, and you know, just spark people's interest in getting involved in the community and sharing beers, which is what it's all about, really. But yeah, last year was such a ball. I really enjoyed it, and also I was privileged enough to receive beers from the guys in the States, and of course Paul Wicksteed was able to send me a few beers all the way from New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I mean, with the American beers, I also managed to get the opportunity on a trip to London to share some of their beers with Brewmaster Ben, another YouTuber or brewtuber.
Mm.
So that sharing experience was what it was all about, and I really enjoyed being part of it. It wasn't a chore being the hub. In fact, it was more of a privilege to know that you're enabling other brewers to get involved with this.
Right.
You know, even if the SJ Pour experiment turned into a multi-million-pound industry, I'd be the hub every year for free, because I really just enjoy watching people. I've got people who have registered for this year's challenge. They don't even have a boil kettle yet, and I think that's really exciting, because the SJ Pour experiment or the SJ Pour challenge has got them thinking. It's got them into it. So this year in the UK, it's going to be bigger and better than last year for sure. I think we've already today overtaken New Zealand for entries, so they'd better book their ideas up down there. But
nice.
We are taking Ireland as well in the UK, so maybe I'm cheating a little bit, maybe just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, this year we're going to be obviously brewing our best beer. That's what I'm hoping to do. And I suppose from there, we're going to get a lot more interest from a lot more new brewers, old brewers, professional brewers, I hope, maybe one or two in there. But I didn't think that it would become such... I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. I suppose such a special event, in the fact that you're judged. Now, this is the key thing with the SJ Pour experiment. You're not judged by a panel or a bunch of guys following BJCP style guidelines. You're judged by your peers. And every single one of the guys who are entering the SJ Pour experiment, be it in the UK or wherever, they're all beer enthusiasts, every single one of them. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this.
Absolutely.
So these guys know what good beer is. They know what they like, you know. And I can't think of a better panel of judges than somebody who just enjoys beer on the same level as you. You know, they're doing exactly the same as you're doing. They're not looking out for commercial gain. They're not looking to put a beer on the market. They're not looking for anything else but to see somebody drink their beer that they've made and say, that's a damn good beer. So
now, is that the reaction that you got recently with Zippy, Brewmaster Ben, Hansworth Homebrew, and Uncle Jonah? They were reviewing your beer.
Yeah.
What's the name of that beer?
Joggers Nipple.
Joggers Nipple. And that's a hell of an experience, to be able to watch 4 of your peers review your beer, tear it apart, and tell you what they really think.
Yeah, I didn't know Zippy was doing this. Okay, he'd ordered a few grains off me and whatnot, and as I like to do on occasion, just chuck a bottle of homebrew that I've got knocking about into the box. It just saves me. I can send out a little bit of beer mail to some people, and I don't have to pay shipping, because the guys have paid shipping for their ingredients. So just as a little sweetener to the deal, I threw in a little, well, it was a big, actually, 660ml bottle of a bitter recipe that I trialled out maybe a week or 4, or, yeah, probably about a month prior. And I think it was a 40-litre batch, so I'd kegged half of it, and I'd actually dry hopped it as well. I had some Cascade lying about, and I threw it in. And when I drank it, I thought that Cascade in this bitter was a mistake. but I needed my fermenters, so I bottled the other 20 litres quickly, put them down into the shed, almost forgot about them. I didn't even bottle them into my proper bottles. They were sanitised and clean, but they still had the old beer labels on from what they were in it originally. So I just thought, oh, throw one in for Zippy, he'll just sup it, he'll appreciate the beer. So I'd literally scribbled on the front of it, "Hiya Zippy, here's a bit of Joggers Nipple, sorry about the label." Sent it off. And then, yeah, lo and behold,
bam,
up pops a link on Facebook for a review. So we had Uncle Jonah, Zippy, Brewmaster Ben and Darren Chappell all sat round a table, and out comes the old Joggers Nipple. And I thought, oh, this is going to go down well, because seriously, it wasn't meant to be a flagship beer or anything like that. It was just a beer share, and yeah, they seemed to enjoy it. And to sit there and watch them all take the mick a little bit, have a drink, enjoy themselves around a table, and the focus of that enjoyment was a beer that I'd sent Zippy. That's what it's all about. You know, that really does. In fact, that's one of the reasons, Tony, that got me making YouTube videos. Because I not only wanted to share, you know, what I was doing, but I also wanted to see other people enjoy what I was doing. So by sharing this, people were doing video responses saying, "Oh yeah, I've used your recipe for this," or I've used your video. You know, the comments that you get from the videos. Just the amount of support that comes back really does. I don't know. It sort of make you feel good to know that other people are enjoying something just from your tiny little contribution. You're making a difference.
I think it's gratifying.
That's the word. Right? Yeah, that's the word that I think I'm looking for.
And I think people who watch your videos agree that they get a sense of that out of you. I mean, it only takes you mentioned when you shared the beers that you received from New Zealand with Brewmaster Ben. I mean, you didn't have to do that.
No.
But you did that, and you sent it, and you shared it, and it was very cool watching you guys both do the way that you did the reviews then. But more than that, it was about, we got a really good sense that, you know what, Harrybrew69 is this guy that is unselfish and just likes to share, and he's doing it for the benefit of the friendships, the relationships, the community, the involvement, and yeah.
Well, I fooled you all. I'm a complete narcissist. No, I completely agree. Yeah, I mean, being selfless is an important part of being involved in this homebrew community that we've got going. And I didn't for 1 minute expect the amount of subscribers that I've got on YouTube. Didn't for 1 minute expect the amount of people that send me messages, send me beers through the post. You know, come over to idlevalleybrewing.com and support what I'm doing there. It's a very humbling situation to be in. But yeah,
let's talk a little bit about Idle Valley Brewing. So, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but yes, it's a humbling experience. When it comes to when it comes to idlevalleybrewing.com, now you talked about the motivations behind it were, of course, trying to maximize savings by ordering in bulk and then reciprocating that and sharing it with the community. Again, yet another example of your selflessness and drive to, you know, benefit more people than just yourself. What were some of the business growing pains that you've run into?
Well, the first thing that I suppose was really a big issue was having the funds to carry it out. Because as soon as you've been in touch with these suppliers and they sort of know what you're up to, they're not interested because they think you're a small fish in a big pond, and they don't really want to give you any support because obviously they're running businesses as well, and unless there's any financial gain for them, they're majority of the time they're not interested. I suppose that was the biggest sort of hurdle that I came up against when trying to get it off the ground, and it still is. I mean, I've got a very limited range on the site. It started initially from me making the mash paddles when I did my 30-day sobriety, and I just wanted to offer the mash paddles to other people because I thought, wow, I've done a good job on that actually. And obviously now I've made sort of dozens of them. I'm a dab hand at it. But yeah, I thought, well, it looks a bit thin on the ground, just selling 1 or 2 bits there, and I thought this has got potential to run if I can get some good deals. And of course, the better deals that I get, the cheaper it is for me to brew, which means the more beer I can make for myself. So, you know, it's helping everybody out.
What's been your worst experience with that so far?
What you mean with getting stock in, or
IdleValleyBrewing.com in general?
Yeah, it's just financial. That's the worst thing you've got to overcome.
Now, I thought that you were going to mention some of the behind-the-scenes things that had a little hiccup there.
Well, yeah, there are 1 or 2. I mean,
I was thinking more about the hiccup with the database, the technological hiccups.
Okay, well, I'm hardly. Well, this is another thing you see, Tony. I came straight out of knowing absolutely nothing about setting up a website to putting together not only a website such as a WordPress site, which is how it originated, but trying to link that up to some sort of shop template that I could use, so I could stock it with grains and hops and all the other kind of goodies that we all want. And yeah, knowing the ins and outs on how that all works, knowing how to figure out databases, you know, back office admin, all this kind of stuff can be a little overwhelming. I didn't even know what PHP and SQL meant before I started doing.
A lot of people don't. No.
And really that was a tough learning curve. But yeah, I forget the exact circumstances that led up to it. But at one point, yeah, we lost everything. The database dropped, and everything was gone. All the customers' information, all the product details, stock levels, product images, everything. I mean, fortunately, I had backups of that kind of stuff on my computer, but I didn't have a backup of the database. Oh. Which, yeah, I didn't realise how important it was at the time. I do now. So I had to repopulate absolutely everything. So, fortunately though, that only affected the shop side of things. IdleValleyBrewing.com as a website, as a blog, which is how it started, remained unaffected. So I was fortunate I didn't have to write out all of my recipes again, and you know, little bits that I'd done and how I started brewing and all that kind of stuff. Not that I've got a lot in there anyway.
So, what's been some of the best experiences with starting up IdleValleyBrewing.com?
Well, it was initially started out, as I say, for just me to share with everybody else my experiences as a brewer. For people who perhaps weren't so YouTube orientated, because a lot of my stuff, in fact 99% of it, is on YouTube. So I thought it'd be nice to get something out there where people could just come along, read a little bit of background about myself, for instance, and you know, see what's happening. Maybe post up recipes on there. I thought it would be a good resource because people don't want to be sifting through hours of YouTube video just to see what type of hops I used in a beer. So you know, that's what it was there mainly for, just to help people find what I was doing on YouTube without having to go straight to YouTube. And it didn't really, I wouldn't say it flew when I opened the site. had a few people come across and visit it and say, you know, even SJ paid a visit and left a comment in there. Then when I added the shop element to it, people took a little bit more interest. And I suppose this is what I was trying to touch upon earlier. I mean, we do try and get crowd-funded, I suppose is one of the words that you could use. So the more people that I had interested in it, the cheaper we could get things, and the guys knew that, and you know, they all jumped on board, and you know, I set up a loyalty scheme on there. So you know, I didn't want to offer the best discounts in the world to just Joe Blogs who happened upon it, because this was made for the community of guys that were, you know, we'd grown together on YouTube, and that's who I wanted to give the best deals to. So yeah, people started to promote it on the videos. I know Tom did a hell of a lot for it, and I did send him 1 or 2 freebies as well. But I doubt very much that it would be where it is now if it wasn't for that initial sort of group effort, should I say, where people were pushing it out. And we still have new people coming in now, and a lot of the old guys come in and buy stuff as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy where it was. I mean, really, I don't want people to feel like I'm pushing it now, if you know what I mean. You know,
IdaValleyBrewing.com, everyone. I mean, don't miss it. I mean, go there right now. Don't finish this interview. Just go watch it.
Like, there's plenty of stuff out there. So, I mean, if people want to go and find it, you can go and find it. But, yeah, I mean, I'm thankful for the amount of hard work that everybody else has put into it as well to get it where it is now. And who knows where it's going to be in 5 or 10 years' time. I know where I'll be. I'll still be on YouTube doing what I'm doing, making videos, getting infections, putting batches together, doing runs across to the gas man to pick up some more CO2, doing silly little blog videos, all that kind of stuff. I can't see me stopping that anytime in the near future, but if IdaValleyBrewing.com's still running, then that's one thing I want to do, is increase its inventory, and you know, let's really drive down them prices and stick 2 fingers up to the man.
When you and Dave get going, I mean, Dave is like the most forgiven friend I've ever seen, because you sling some shit his way, and he just, it's like water on a duck. It just rolls right off him, and he goes.
It does actually work both ways. I mean, that's, to be fair. You know, if we ever got a chance to meet up, and you could also, like, if you ever met some of my friends, you'd think we were the worst enemies. You really would, because the way we treat each other. Yeah, I definitely don't talk like that. Well, it's often a monologue on YouTube, isn't it? So I don't get the opportunity. But yeah, we're potty mouths. We swear a lot.
They're all terms of endearment. We get
are,
that.
yeah.
We
really do give each other a hard time, but yeah, that's what they are. And it can be difficult for, like, even just people who, it don't matter whether you live in the UK or not. A lot of people think that we've passed the mark a few times, but yeah, it's all in jest. It's all in joke. It's just sometimes people can take offence to it, can't they? And yeah, I mean, I do. Well, I don't to myself on a Friday night. I think, oh, did we cross the line on Friday or not? But we've not been banned.
No, I think people understand that that's the whole sort of role play of that sort of scene, and that's what makes it so hilarious, because you guys do just go off on each other sometimes, and we know it's all in good fun. We've got you covered as a home brewer.
Yeah.
We've got you covered as a professional. We've got you covered as an entrepreneur. Covered as a community guy. And the webcast that you guys have on Friday nights, I think when you and Dave are sort of bantering back and forth, I mean, it's great British humor is just coming out. But we get that, right? I mean, we get that it's all in good fun and good humor. And I mean, all of your YouTube videos, some of the stuff is tongue-in-cheek, and I think that's a lot of the appeal that people have for you, is that you're very humorous, you're very friendly, you're very affable, right? So very easy to communicate with or relate to, and I think your contributions to the YouTubing community by far, both indulging us with humor, but also your ingenuity, your knowledge, and sharing capabilities are just phenomenal. So thank you very much for all of that contributions, and I really look forward to watching more from Harrybrew69 in the coming years.
Well, they're very kind words, Tony. Thank you very much. Yeah, and I hope I'm going to be about for quite some time yet, making more off-the-wall humorous videos, helping people out, and more than anything else, enjoying myself, because that's if I didn't do that, then I wouldn't do any of it. So yeah, I'd like to take a moment right now to see if I've offended anybody at all. I don't really care.